1 chance in 83. That's the latest calculation for an asteroid the size of half a football field possibly colliding with our planet in 2032. This isn't some sci-fi plot, it's an actual projection that has astronomers buzzing. But the real story is how these looming space threats seep into our culture, spark our imaginations, and sometimes even push us to laugh in the face of cosmic peril. You're here because something about space intrigues you. Maybe it's the silent vastness, or maybe it's that unmistakable jolt of adrenaline whenever we hear an asteroid might be heading our way. The truth is, each time a new object, like 2013 TV 135, is announced, it reminds us how deeply our lives and our pop culture are influenced by the possibility of an extraterrestrial threat. Even if the odds are slim, that sliver of a chance sparks intense discussions, blockbuster films, and a unique fascination with the apocalypse. Asteroid 2013 TV 135, discovered in 2013, is about 180 feet wide. When astronomers announced a 1 in 83 chance of it striking Earth in 2032, people were understandably alarmed. NASA has since refined the calculations and lowered that probability. But the initial shock resonates with our primal fear of cosmic collisions. After all, Earth has been hit before, sometimes with devastating consequences. In pop culture, we immediately think of scenes from Deep Impact or Armageddon, imagining all the ways we might fend off disaster. But our fascination with meteors and asteroids isn't new. Ancient civilizations saw meteors streak across the sky and took them as signs of the divine. The massive Tunguska event in 1908 flattened a huge swath of Siberian forest, reminding everyone that cosmic threats can appear without warning. And in 2013, the Chelyabinsk meteor shattered windows across Russia, injuring over 1,000 people and jolting us out of complacency. We learned that these events aren't confined to the pages of science fiction. They can, and do, happen in real life. Pop culture responded in force. We have a whole subgenre of asteroid disaster movies, from big-budget spectacles like Armageddon, where we dispatch oil drillers to nuke the threat, to Deep Impact, which took a more somber approach, examining how society copes with impending doom. Video games like the classic Asteroids feed our heroic impulse. We get to blast dangerous space rocks before they pulverize us. We mock these ideas, celebrate them, and revisit them again and again, because cosmic threats capture our imaginations in ways few other things can. There's often a playful humor in how we deal with doomsday scenarios. NASA has real planetary defense plans that sound almost comical if you simplify them. Painting an asteroid white to change how it reflects sunlight, ramming it with a spacecraft to alter its path, or brainstorming other ways to nudge it aside. It's top-tier science, but it has a certain comedic flair. Pop culture picks up on that too. Cartoons and sitcoms parody the idea of the big rock headed our way, because sometimes the best way to cope with existential dread is to laugh at it. Of course, there's real science behind these near-Earth objects. Every time astronomers discover a new asteroid, with even a remote chance of hitting Earth, they refine the orbit calculations using radar, telescopes, and countless observations. The numbers often shift, usually dropping impact probabilities significantly. But the tension never fully goes away. We can't predict every factor that might alter an asteroid's path, including subtle effects like solar radiation. There's always a small risk lingering in the back of our minds. That risk propels us to keep advancing our detection technology, to keep an eye on the skies, and to keep fueling the creative engines of Hollywood. As a culture, we find asteroids captivating because they're one of the more tangible cosmic threats. Distant black holes or gamma ray bursts are epic, but they're mostly theoretical for us, far beyond our immediate sphere. An asteroid is something we can see, measure, and occasionally feel. It's the bullet from space that doesn't care who it hits. It humbles us, reminding us that no matter how advanced we become, a rogue space rock can overturn everything in an instant. When headlines declare something like "Asteroid could hit Earth," the cycle is almost predictable. The object is discovered, the media hypes the initial risk, NASA clarifies the data, social media erupts with jokes and memes referencing Bruce Willis. And then the story fades until the next one emerges. That's what happened with 2013 TV 135. The moment we heard about that one in 83 Chance, imaginations ran wild. Most people probably didn't notice the quieter follow-up that lowered the odds. It's a perfect snapshot of how news, entertainment, and public perception intertwine whenever cosmic collisions become a talking point. The comedic angle isn't just limited to fictional media. Real scientists sometimes have to address outlandish questions or references to Hollywood. They hold Q&A sessions, explain how legitimate deflection strategies differ from the cinematic drill a nuke into the asteroid approach, and remind everyone that real planetary defense is less dramatic and more about early detection, orbital math, and lots of international cooperation. Yet, there's an odd charm to the seriousness of a planetary defense office. It feels like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, complete with its own brand of understated humor. Why are we so drawn to these apocalyptic scenarios? Perhaps it's the universal aspect. An asteroid doesn't care about borders. If one headed our way, humanity would have to unite, a concept that many find both terrifying and strangely hopeful. The end of the world, ironically, sometimes brings out our collective best in fiction. We see characters band together, set aside differences, and fight for everyone's survival. In reality, the same principle applies. NASA, ESA, and other agencies coordinate to track and analyze possible threats. These efforts cross national and cultural lines, aiming to protect the planet as a whole. In smaller, more personal stories, an incoming asteroid often serves as a backdrop to human drama, focusing on relationships and existential questions. If we knew we had only days or weeks left, how would we spend them? Would petty problems suddenly seem ridiculous? Would we find a deeper appreciation for the people around us? It's a reflective angle that resonates in indie films or limited TV series, where the asteroid becomes a ticking clock for emotional honesty. We've also used the concept of asteroids to explore our drive for exploration and resource gathering. Some real-world companies have pitched the idea of mining asteroids for water, metals, or other materials, turning them from potential threats into opportunities. It's a classic human move: spot a risk and figure out how to profit from it. That entrepreneurial spirit blends excitement with scientific curiosity, a perfect premise for the next wave of sci-fi stories, and maybe even real missions in the future. Still, the big question remains: could a massive asteroid blindside us tomorrow? Despite the alarmist headlines, astronomers are quite good at spotting large near-Earth objects well in advance. It's the medium-sized ones, like 2013 TV 135, that can slip under the radar until they're fairly close. Even so, improved telescope networks and international collaborations make it less likely we'll be caught off guard. And if we ever identify a truly dangerous object, there's a plan. Missions akin to NASA's DART have demonstrated we can alter an asteroid's path by crashing a spacecraft into it. The tension between doom and relief is part of why these stories captivate us. On one hand, we know a large collision is unlikely in our lifetime. On the other, we can't rule it out entirely. So we dramatize that small possibility, weaving it into movies, TV, memes, and water cooler chatter. And each new near miss or improbable statistic keeps the cycle going. Asteroids also reflect a deeper truth about our vulnerability as a species. We're advanced, but we're not invincible. Scenes of meteors annihilating cities highlight how fragile our daily routines really are. These cosmic threats tear down illusions of permanence and force us to ask bigger questions. How will we handle a global crisis when it comes? Will we cooperate or descend into chaos? And is there a way to find humor without trivializing real danger? Perhaps that's why so many comedic takes exist. Dark humor about an incoming asteroid can be a coping mechanism, a collective release valve for existential stress. We laugh because, in the end, there's only so much we can do against a force of nature millions of miles away. Jokes help us navigate the tension between wanting control and acknowledging we have limits. 2013, TV 135 itself is a perfect example of how these stories play out. Discovered by a Ukrainian observatory, it quickly grabbed headlines worldwide. For a short time, doomsday seemed more tangible than usual. Then came the scientific re-evaluations, more data, better orbital analysis, and the odds plummeted. By now, it's effectively just another rock drifting through the solar system, posing no major threat. But for a moment, it captured our collective imagination. It became part of our living tapestry of space lore, even if many forgot its name as soon as the headlines moved on. We've been living under the shadow of asteroid impacts for millions of years, and each generation finds new ways to respond. Early humans might have told stories around a fire, attributing falling stars to spirits or gods. We, on the other hand, produce Hollywood blockbusters and fling real spacecraft at asteroids to gather data or test deflection techniques. Despite our technological leaps, the emotional core remains: awe at the universe, fear of the unknown, and the desire to make sense of our place within it. In many ways, the asteroid threat unites art and science more naturally than other cosmic phenomena. Science gives us data and probabilities. Art gives us the emotional language to process it. We start with real calculations about 1 in 83 chances, then spin it into scenarios of love, sacrifice, heroism, and yes, comedic relief. The scientific truth might be reassuring, the risk is low, but the cultural resonance remains high. If you watch the public discourse around these events, you'll see how quickly fact and fiction blend. People will quote lines from Armageddon as though they were NASA protocols, or reference comedic sketches to downplay the severity. We move so fluidly between genuine concern and pop culture commentary that it becomes one big conversation, a reflection of how space isn't just out there, but deeply woven into our shared experiences. When you step back, it's remarkable how an ancient rock drifting through the solar system can cause such a stir in our imaginations. Maybe it's because asteroids are powerful stand-ins for everything beyond our control. They're a cosmic reminder that the universe is bigger and stranger than we usually acknowledge. Yet we keep discovering, keep learning, and keep storytelling. So where does that leave us with 2013 TV 135? Safely in the realm of not going to hit us. The headlines have come and gone, and even if you try to track it, it doesn't evoke the same panic it once did. But it added a new chapter to our ongoing narrative about asteroids. It prompted a little spike in memes, a few new jokes, some new lines on NASA's data charts, and maybe a moment of existential pause for anyone who read the original Doomsday headline. In that sense, it did what these near-miss asteroids always do, reminded us that we're passengers on a spinning sphere, at the mercy of forces we can't fully predict. And that's the perfect intersection of space science and pop culture, a swirl of data, dread, fascination, and humor. We draw from history, from myth, from modern cinema, from scientific breakthroughs, weaving them into an ever-evolving tapestry of how we perceive the cosmos. We're enthralled by the drama because it tells us something about ourselves. Will we be prepared when the next big rock makes headlines? Will we panic, or will we trust the scientists to figure it out? And in the meantime, who's directing the next asteroid movie? Even if the threat is mostly hypothetical, the creative energy it sparks is very real. Every time a new asteroid enters the conversation, we get fresh waves of speculation. both serious and silly. It's as if the cosmos is nudging us to keep telling stories, keep pushing boundaries, and keep a sense of humor about the fragile world we inhabit. So as you wrap your head around that once alarming 1 in 83 chance, consider what it represents, a fleeting possibility that shook us out of routine and made us ask big questions. Sure, the numbers were never that high to begin with, and they're even lower now. But maybe that moment of fear and curiosity did some good. Maybe it reminded us that for all our complexities, we share one planet, one potential target in a cosmic shooting gallery. The next time another asteroid sparks sensational headlines, remember this cycle. Listen to the science, enjoy the memes, watch the Hollywood reenactments if you must. But also let it remind you that we're all in this together, scanning the skies, hoping we have the tech and the unity to handle whatever space throws our way. Stay curious and keep looking up. The universe is always full of surprises,